The truth is finally out. Some of the palm-colored people are now waking up and saying it the way it's supposed to be said, leaving no crumbs. For instance, in today's episode, this white man came out and publicly admitted the fact that black Americans deserve reparations, and then he went ahead and unpacked the history behind it. And as an African, I'm going to give you my take on reparations, and before I do that, let's watch the video of this gentleman, and credit belongs to him because he's the original creator of this clip. So guys, let's dive in.
Black people deserve reparations. Yes, I'm dead serious. I'm not just saying this because I want to own up for our history of slavery, although that is a fine reason to say we should pay reparations. I'm saying that because America has an outstanding debt to all black Americans born in this country. We owe black people, and I'm willing to bet you all have no idea how much. So I'm going to break it down for you. I'm not making only an emotional and moral argument here. I just think it's the logical thing to do. So if you're Republican, Democrat, and especially if you're white, please hear me out. White people are the largest demographic of people that oppose reparations. So you can head into the comments and call me a white traitor or a suck up to black people or whatever you want. All I ask is that you hear me out first. I'm going to break down the history of this real quick so I can make sure we're on the same page. The vast majority of African Americans that are born in America are descended from slaves. I'm talking like 90%, a massive number. African Americans were enslaved for nearly 250 years, from 1619 to 1865. Over 2 centuries that an entire race of people was enslaved, and their descendants right now are your lawyers, your law enforcement, your teachers, and yes, they were once your president. But we abolished slavery, right? So what's the problem? Bro, so much. After slaves were freed nationwide, General William Sherman met with 20 black pastors in Georgia and asked them one simple question: what do you want for your people? These pastors argued that they didn't want to live among white people because it would take years for racial prejudice to dissipate, and they wanted their own land that they can till by their own labor where they would be safe. Sherman agreed and signed Field Order 15. The order was supported by Abraham Lincoln, and it reserved 400,000 acres of land for freed slaves. That's all the way from South Carolina, like Charleston, to Florida. However, 4 months later, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and not too long after that, Abe Lincoln's replacement, Andrew Johnson, revoked the order. After it was revoked, freed black slaves were fucked. They had no money, no land, and were incredibly impoverished. Most ended up going back to working, the white man's land, and that was called sharecropping, and the conditions there were only slightly better than slavery. Some black folks became landowners, but it was incredibly rare. It makes you wonder what would have happened if Lincoln lived. The racial divide in our country would be entirely different. Slavery doesn't end with sharecropping either. Legal slavery continued until the 1930s. It was called convict leasing, and to put it simply, black folks would be arrested en masse on trumped-up charges, then have them working in the same fields in the same conditions they had as slaves. So slavery didn't end in 1865. In fact, it's not even been 100 years since slavery ended. In fact, slavery still exists in our prison system today. But I'm going off topic getting into that. What's important to remember is that we enslaved black people for centuries and had them build everything for us. And I mean literally everything. They built our roads, our buildings, our infrastructure. America is a land entirely built on slaves, and anyone who tells you different either doesn't know the truth or is lying. The Smithsonian was built by slaves. Harvard was built by slaves. The Capitol building was built by slaves. The White House was built by slaves. And so much more. It's not figurative. We literally owe the black people in this country. We've got an outstanding bill to pay these people. We've said we're sorry and promised to pay multiple times, but every time we fuck these people over. We don't just owe the slaves that died, we owe their heirs. And we have paid out reparations to people before that have been damaged by things that are not their fault. And those payments go out to their heirs. Black people of today are absolutely still affected by racial injustice rooted in slavery. There is so much more to this argument, and I encourage you to learn more about the history of reparations and slavery if you're interested, but instead of focusing on that, I want to say something else. I don't think the reparations discussion will ever be solved logically. I think it will always have to come from the heart and explain why it's the right thing to do, and so I want to speak from the heart for a second. I was raised in the South, and I truly love this place. It's something that I don't talk about often because I think my friends would make fun of me for it, but I love it. I love back roads and country music and living in a small town. I love sweet tea, and I'm always blown away when I travel other places and they don't have... You know what I mean. I may not always act like it, but I really love this place. But here's the thing. I was raised to notice injustices and think critically, to respect authority, but not to revere it, not to let power get to your head and that greed will steal what truly matters to you. So why is it, when I look around at this place I love, all I see is that same greed, injustice, and unchecked authority everywhere? And it's being used to put these people down, time and time again. And I just can't shake this feeling I have deep down that we've done these people wrong. There's no two ways about it. I'm not supposed to be on this land. I am not supposed to be here because so many had to die for me to be here. And if I had to trade my existence to make those things right, I would. I don't deserve to be here, but I am. And slowly, I realize that feeling guilty about this does nothing. I'm not the one who made any of those decisions, but just like how black people have to wear the history of their ancestors on their skin, so do we. We are at fault. And that's why I think reparations is just the right fucking thing to do. And don't give me about the shit about that we can't afford it or it's not realistic. It is. So many people smarter than me have come up with plans for reparations that are realistic and affordable. It's not just about making the right decision. So many people can rest if we do this. The blood of our history can rest if we just do what's right. Thank you guys for hearing me out. Longer than usual. If you waited this long, you can head into the comments and call me a libtard if you want. And I'd love that. Peace, guys.
So guys, welcome back. I really feel so touched because when I look at Black Americans, I don't see strangers. I see relatives stolen by force. I see the descendants of royalty who are stripped of their languages, of their traditions, and even of their ancestral names. I see the children of our lost kingdoms, the warriors, the mothers, the fathers, the farmers, the priests, doctors, name them, who are denied everything except the will to survive. And what makes the call for reparation so sacred is that the Black Americans have not only endured the brutality of slavery, but the betrayal that followed it. From Reconstruction to Jim Crow, from lynchings to redlining, from mass incarceration to economic exclusion, and every generation was promised justice and denied it. And yet, Black Americans are still building, resisting, and rising up to date. As an African born from the soil where our ancestors first walked, I feel so deep and personal connection to the conversation around the reparation for the Black Americans. And this is not just a foreign issue to me. It's not their struggle, it is our collective story, split by oceans but rooted in the same tree. So guys, before I continue, let me give credit to another creator here who was talking about reparation, that Black folks truly deserve it.
When white people in the United States balk at the idea of paying reparations to Black Americans who descended from slaves, they disagree with the Bible. Reparations are a form of compensation or restitution made to those who have suffered injustice, particularly those in cases of racial inequality, discrimination, and slavery. The idea of paying reparations to Black Americans is not a new one. It has been a topic of discussion for decades, if not centuries. However, it has gained renewed attention and support in recent years, following the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the growing recognition of systemic racism in American society. As a Christian, I believe that reparations are not only a matter of justice and equity, but also a reflection of God's character and values. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of God's concern for the oppressed, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. From the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt to the ministry of Jesus among the poor and the outcast, we see a consistent theme of God's love for those who are on the margins of society. One of the key biblical principles that underlie the idea of reparations is the concept of restitution. In the book of Leviticus, we see God commanding the Israelites to make restitution to those whom they have wronged. Leviticus 6, 1 through 5 says, "If anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of deposit or security or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or has found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely in any of all the things that people do and sin thereby, if he has sinned and has realized his guilt and will restore what he took by robbery when he got it by oppression or deposit that was committed to him or the lost thing that he found or anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore in full and shall add a fifth to it and give it to him to whom it belongs on the day that he realizes his guilt." This passage emphasizes the importance of making restitution to those who have been wronged and not just restoring what was taken, but adding to it as a form of compensation. This principle of restitution can be applied to the issue of reparations to Black Americans who have suffered centuries of enslavement, discrimination, and systemic oppression. Another biblical principle that supports the idea of reparations is the concept of Jubilee. In Leviticus 25, God commands the Israelites to observe a Jubilee every 50th year, during which all debts are forgiven, all slaves to be set free, and all property to be returned to its original owners. This was a radical idea of economic justice designed to prevent the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few and to ensure that all members of society had equal access to resources and opportunities. The idea of Jubilee can be seen as a model for reparations in that it seeks to address the root causes of inequality and oppression rather than just treating the symptoms. By forgiving debts, freeing slaves, and returning property, Jubilee seeks to create a more just and equitable society, one in which everyone has the opportunity to flourish. As a Christian, I believe paying reparations to Black Americans is only a matter of justice and equity, but also it is a reflection of God's values and character. Through the biblical principles of restitution and Jubilee, we see a model for how we can address the historical and systemic injustices that have plagued our society for far too long. While the issue of reparations is complex and contentious, I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to seek justice.
So, as an African, let me clearly say this. Reparations are not about pity or guilt. They're about justice. They're about paying for what is owed for generations of theft, of bodies, of labor, of time, and of dignity. And if we truly believe in truth and reconciliation, then honestly, America must reconcile with its original sin, the enslavement of the Black people. And you know what? Reconciliation begins with acknowledgement, and then atonement, and finally restitution. Then reparations are the final step, that step that America keeps refusing to take. Reparations are not only what about the United States must pay. They're also about what we must restore, the cultural bridges, the historical memory, the spiritual kinship, because the Black Americans, they are not lost Black folks. They are the displaced royalty, the descendants of warriors, queens, farmers who endured the impossible. And so, as an African, I stand with Black Americans in their fight for reparations because their history is mine. Their pain echoes through my bones, and their resilience inspires me each and every single day. And their victory, when it comes, it will be victory for all of us who remembers. Reparations are not the end, they're just the beginning of healing, and the healing must begin right now. And you know what, guys? In many African traditions, we always believe that when injustice goes unaddressed, it always disturbs that balance between the living and the ancestors. You know, you cannot bury pain and expect peace. You cannot silence history, then expect healing. Reparations are not just political, they are spiritual. They are the spirit of those who died in chains, in rebellion, in silence, and they are still waiting. And by supporting reparation, we are not only supporting a moral debt, we are aligning our generation with the call of truth, drumbeat of justice, and even the blessing of our ancestors. I know they will be so happy wherever they are if the black folks get those reparations. And to my fellow Africans, wherever you are watching this video, we must not be silent, because some of our ancestors, they played roles willingly or by force in the slave trade, and that's the painful truth. But pain is not an excuse to look away. Instead, we must become part of that healing process. We must honor our brothers and sisters in America, not just by words, but with action. Let's open our arms. Let's build bridges across the diaspora. Let's advocate for the reparation not only in America but also for some cultural restoration, identity, language, land, even spiritual reconnection, because the loss was not only physical, it was cosmic. Reparation must include memory and homecoming. And that's why I was telling my fellow Africans that let's open arm and build those bridges. You never know if tomorrow it's us. And I know even some of the Africans, they demand reparation, but they don't have that voice to speak it out. So when I came across the video of this gentleman on TikTok, I felt so moved and so pleased. I even went ahead to view his TikTok account. It's a small account. It's when he's starting to speak out, to speak the truth and say it the way it's supposed to be said. And even went ahead to say that he doesn't care what his community will say about him, because he is here to say it the way it's supposed to be said, that black folks demand and deserve reparation. I felt so challenged as a black African lady. And in fact, I can even blame some of our elders who never taught us about the struggles the black Americans have been enduring for all these years, the enslavement, and about the reparation. Personally, I came to learn about reparation in my 4th year at the university. I didn't know anything about it. It takes some of the young generation, the Gen Zs, to learn some of the things, especially part of history, by themselves. Because even African history, there are some parts which have been erased. If you don't dig deeper, you won't know anything. The way I'm seeing Black American history being erased, some of the parts being erased, that is exactly what is happening in Africa. And you know, Africans is a time that we should start waking up, learn about our history, learn about Black American history, because we are brothers and sisters. Even if they are in diaspora, we are still one family. So, guys, I'm so much interested in learning the Black American history. If you know any good book, any good article, any podcast, you can recommend it to me, because I'm so much ready to learn about it. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you felt moved, let me know in the comment section. And please don't forget to follow this gentleman on TikTok. I will appreciate your support. Personally, I don't know him. I only came across his channel. So don't take me wrong. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I honestly appreciate it. I'm your presenter, Judy. Kindly let's keep the conversation going, and let me know if you are supporting Black American in demanding, or do they really deserve a reparation. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, guys, see you on my next episode. Stay safe.